Vectors. This is my first video about vectors and just some fundamental ideas. So there's two types of quantities. We have vector quantities and scalar quantities. Vectors have magnitude and direction. Scalars just have magnitude. So here's a bunch of quantities. Which ones of these do you reckon are vectors? Which ones are scalars? And the answer is these ones are vectors: displacement, velocity, force, momentum, acceleration. They have direction. Okay, because they have direction, vectors can be represented with an arrow, and the direction of the arrow would tell us the direction of the vector, and perhaps if you were doing a scale drawing, the size of the arrow could give us an indication of how big it is, its magnitude. So velocity of 5 meters per second, a force of 100 meters, momentum of 2.5 kilogram meters per second, etc. We can represent all of those with an arrow. Adding vectors together is easy if they're in the same or opposite directions. And when you add together vectors, what you're doing is you're finding the resultant vector. Very often you have to say which direction is positive, whether it's left to right or upwards or downwards or north or whatever. So here's some very easy sums for you to do. Adding together two forces, two velocities, two displacements, and the answers are very straightforward. And they are the resultants. The resultant force, I don't know why I haven't put 30 newtons there, never mind. If we have two vectors which are perpendicular to each other, then we can use Pythagoras to find the resultant. The Pythagoras to get the magnitude of the resultant, and then trigonometry to find its direction. Hopefully you passed GCSE maths and you will know Pythagoras. So r is going to be the square root of 20 squared plus 30 squared, and theta will be tan to the minus 1 of 30 over 20. Here's a little sum for you to do. Do a sketch, a little vector diagram. That will help you. And the answer is, well, there's my diagram and there's my answer. If it's saying what will be the resultant, then don't forget that the resultant has magnitude and direction. If it just asks for the magnitude, fair enough. But if it says find the resultant, then it's very possible that half the marks will be for the direction. Here's another one for you to have a go at. An aeroplane can fly at a speed of 100 meters per second in still air. The pilot aims north, but a 15 meter per second crosswind from the west blows the plane off course. Use a vector diagram to find the resultant velocity of the plane. And number 2, in what direction should the pilot aim so as to go directly north? Now, number 1 is very straightforward. Number 2, perhaps not so. Anyway, do you want to have a go at it? And the answers are that one. Usually with my students, the first time they see it, they get the first one right, okay, but then they don't realize on the second one that the resultant is north and the 100 meters per second is the vector at the angle.